Way back in 2007, there was a flurry of really good games. There's at least a couple here that'll make you feel nostalgic. One of these was Bioshock, successful and beloved, the setting of Rapture a testament for narrative and artistic vision in the medium. Then in 2013, there's Bioshock Infinite, partially gaslighted into becoming another classic. This leaves the 2010 direct sequel, Bioshock 2, as the middle child that people tend to pass over, which is a shame as it's a great installment, refining the gameplay and level design, making it better than the original and Infinite in several ways. I think the culprit for 2's neglect is the concept itself. Continuing the story of Rapture 10 years later felt like retreading old ground, lacking the initial wow factor, and playing as a Big Daddy an annoying expansion of the worst section from the original. There's a degree of truth, but the improvements are substantial and the narrative complements the world of Rapture quite well. Bioshock 2's story is initially unassuming, yet I think the tone and themes make it special. 90% of the first game was a bunch of stuff that happened before the big twist, a lame boss fight, and 2 endings that are honestly mediocre. It was the exploration of Rapture, its lore, Andrew Ryan's philosophy, and revelations that kept it so memorable. 2's is a more melancholic journey, where you, Subject Delta, awaken after 10 years of bullet poisoning and begin your search for your little sister, Eleanor, held by her mother, Sophia Lamb. The objectivist philosophy of Ryan has been replaced by her kooky form of collectivist Gnosticism. Despite dozens of audio logs and graffiti everywhere, it's a remarkably undeveloped ideology, despite the ideas touched upon being far more relevant historically and currently than whatever Ayn Rand wrote. It feels like it's still in the drafts, and just an excuse that the splicers attack you. The additional themes pick up the slack here, the greatest being the role of parenthood and how it shapes us and our children. While Lamb is committed to a cause of creating perfect altruism, you actually have multiple options throughout the story besides harvesting or rescuing little sisters. Occasionally, you're given the choice to spare or kill Lamb's lieutenants, some of whom definitely warrant it. Except as a Big Daddy, as a stand-in father for Eleanor, what are you demonstrating? Lamb's ideals may believe to have her daughter's best interest at heart, but the constant manipulations and constrictions are ruinous, and you can offer a necessary counterbalance. This is very well realised in the combination of the game's endings that aren't merely good or bad, but represent your actions nicely and how we pass our morals and beliefs onto the next generation. The character cast is small yet memorable and fleshed out, in great part due to quality voice acting. Through the ubiquitous audio logs, each one presents their reason for rejecting Ryan, indoctrination to Lamb's cult, and how they are surviving Rapture's implosion. There are some oddities and annoyances within the plot. The first and most glaring is the result of being a sequel. Because of the inevitable possibility of a newcomer knowing nothing about Bioshock 1, the whole setting and philosophical talking points have to be reintroduced. This is largely optional speech prompts at a museum, but it does mean the first hour is sluggish. Another discrepancy is somehow the side characters, a decade into the fall of Rapture, are sticking around like Tenenbaum without any splicing or abnormalities. What, they just barricaded themselves away for years? Bioshock 1 and Infinite told epic stories, while 2 is fairly grounded and small-scale personal drama. It's up to you which is preferable, but I found 2's enjoyable and satisfying by the credits. As a mid-gen console title, there isn't a huge technical jump, albeit Rapture still looks great. There's this overarching somber mood across all the levels, the ocean gradually reclaiming once fantastical constructions, and the occasional sea walks emphasize this with collapsing towers and wreckage strewn across the floor. Sometimes you have to pause in the flooded interiors, light piercing through the murky water, and take it in. The artistic design is spot on, and the small inclusion of windows everywhere makes you feel more isolated than ever. The game would look even better if enabling the DirectX 10 features and water reflections didn't constantly crash the game. As a bad, unsupported PC port, the only option to avoid the crashes is to force it all off. At least that worked for me. Apparently the remaster isn't much better, so keep that in mind. Anyhow, Bioshock 2 plays much the same. You explore a bunch of large, multi-layered levels showcasing a unique location of Rapture, kill splicers, gather Adam from Little Sisters, and complete objectives that open up new areas before moving on. The game is the shortest in the series and was criticised for not allowing backtracking to prior stages, yet I feel this helps pacing and keeping every area unique. Each environment stands out, from museums, carnivals, resorts, corporate offices, and research labs, each richly detailed and feeling appropriately de-appellated. Using the map, and if you're really lazy like me, constant waypoints, it's easy to find where to go. There's plenty of side paths to take for additional loot and lore, some of it related to the first game, and all of it useful for developing your weapons, plasmids, and tonics. I think its linear exploration is done well, like playing Half-Life or Unreal. For Bioshock 2's gameplay, the devs' priorities have been to refine the gameplay and mechanics into something more efficient and fun. The most obvious change is the constant dual wielding of plasmids and firearms rather than constantly switching back and forth. This simple change dramatically boosts Bioshock's combat system, allowing a huge range of practical combinations for your arsenal. The dual wielding also gives a better sense of permanence to your gear, unlike Infinite's vigors that were little more than tossing a grenade. The original lineup of guns return, but more diesel-pumped. The double-barreled shotgun is of special note, creating a deafening noise. The drill is a new addition and is great fun to use once you can charge into splicers, absolutely tossing their bodies away. The old range of plasmids remain, with a few new inclusions such as Hypnosis and Scout. Once upgraded, they have unique properties such as chaining damage, increased area of effect, or scaling up their power, like allowing your telekinesis to throw enemies around or using your decoy to reflect damage. Environmental hazards like pools of water or oil that stun enemies are much more frequent, giving the requisite plasmids further applicability. Bioshock 2's combat becomes a light combo focused system that rewards experimentation and applying all your abilities. Tonics complement this in the greater versatility, dumping the limited 3 categories and allowing up to 18 tonics at any time. The stackability means you can spec out Delta to become extremely powerful and efficient in combat, using plasmids or when hacking. Researching enemies has been tweaked to be an active process, making breakthroughs faster by using different combos on the enemies. Besides increasing damage against splicer types, you also gain buffs like increased speed, health, EVE, melee damage, and finally overpowering tonics. I wouldn't say Bioshock 2 has a combat sandbox, but it is more fluid than the first game, and certainly more interesting than Infinite's. However, this is a curious case wherein, besides reduced technical issues, the console version has a leg up in the gamepad as the mouse and keyboard lends to an annoying control pile-up. In hectic late game fights, I get overwhelmed by splicers and knocked around by the newly added brutes. It's just a bit too slow to switch up guns and plasmids and keep a combat flow going. Outside of combat, hacking has been dramatically streamlined. Gone are the puzzle mazes, now it's a real-time minigame and a tool enabling long-range hacks. This makes the whole mechanic both faster and enjoyable as you manipulate cameras and turrets into allies and open up safes and doors. It's awesome having a few security bots following you around, cutting down splicers and big daddies. Now the obvious elephant in the room. How Bioshock 2 changed the Little Sisters. Instead of killing the protecting big daddies and harvesting or rescuing them, you now carry sisters around, gathering additional atom of preset corpses before harvesting or rescuing them. If this seems like further busy work, you'd be largely right. I suppose it dives into the overarching themes of parenthood, yet the in-game result is an additional hour of repeating the same pattern to gain the same reward, atom to spend on tonics and plasmids. I wasn't too frustrated by it, as besides when they introduced the mechanic, it doesn't heavily interrupt your progression between objectives or while exploring the map. It also incorporates the defensive elements of Bioshock 2's combat. Several of your weapons and plasmids have upgrades or alternate fire modes that create tripwires, landmines, and remote turrets that are very helpful whenever guarding your little sister as they harvest atom. This usually goes on for a few minutes as a bunch of different splicers start attacking. The ease of propping up your defensive lines and the sisters' invulnerability keeps the process simple and largely stress-free. That's unless you die, as although Bioshock 2 isn't a hard game due to the Vita chambers to respawn at and manual saving, it's tediously annoying losing all your ammo, medkits and EVE hypos, and then wasting a bunch of money restocking them. Finally, there's the prime piece of Bioshock 2's advertisement, the Big Sisters. Typically appearing after you've collected every little sister in a level, they're a nice mini-boss and a test for your current abilities, running and jumping across the environment, utilising a mixture of melee attacks and plasmids. They're a welcome upgrade over the Big Daddies and feel appropriately intense. Initially, their inception was to be a continual threat like Nemesis in Resident Evil, which would have been pretty cool until they were peeled down into another enemy type. Not so intimidating once several are ragdolled from a power drill. That kinda encapsulates the Bioshock 2 experience. Incredible aesthetic presentation, building upon the original's mechanics, and feeling a little underdeveloped. But where does that leave Minerva's Den? As a dedicated, standalone single-player expansion, a genuine rarity for the time and now, It coalesces all the features and refinements of the base game into a 2 to 3 hour journey. Covering the primary security mainframe that accosts you throughout Rapture, you'll battle through the same mixture of splicers, big daddies and sisters, quickly picking up your old guns and plasmids. The new laser-based weapon and gravity-manipulating plasmid are nice, and I especially enjoy the 50s computer tech plastered across the map's visuals. Unfortunately, the expansion lacks additional hazards or hackable options, besides splicers now occasionally having security drones. However, it's the brevity that keeps it so fresh. There's a tight emotional story of loss and acceptance woven throughout that justifies its recognition as a fine culmination of Bioshock's achievements. Overall, it's kinda obvious why people regularly pass over Bioshock 2, as it doesn't provide anything really new. But I have warm feelings towards it, holding up quite nicely 15 years later. It's widely available and cheap, and if you don't mind its technical woes and a poor remaster, the active combat, mechanical improvements, and an engrossing tone and presentation makes it an unappreciated entry into the series that I can strongly recommend.
Close to me, I'm not responsible, darling. Your lips willing are so